Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Looking at Christmas Day football here for Wednesday. I've got player props and projections for both of the games here, Ravens, Texans, and the Steelers and the Chiefs. But first, gotta let you know that we're doing another giveaway here. Had one winner in the last one. So what I'm looking for is, once again, the first touchdown score for all four teams. Put 4 answers in the comments. If you get 3 of them right, I'll go ahead and give you that free month in the VIP, where we're cruising along in the NBA, up nearly 40 units already on the season. In the NFL, really good week last week that climbed us back over even money on the season. Dieter continuing to carry the load. I see y'all making fun of Dieter in the comments, by the way. My man keeps winning, so I don't really know what trash we would have to talk on my guy who is carrying the NFL bets for us right now, doing a great job. We made plenty of money, 7 units. We're going to go over that all right now. If that all sounds good to you, give the video a like. Let's jump right into it. As mentioned, Dieter with another very, very nice week here. You can see him at 4-1 total between the tutties and the player props, getting us 2 nice plus money plays, 3 total, excuse me. Let's start with the player props. The 2 of us went 5-1 combined, plus 4.8 units. My man went 2-0, plus 125 on the Caleb Williams under INT and the Ricky Pearsall. I mean, he covers the Niners. So whenever he bets on a Niners player, we should listen to him. He's very close to the information going on with the San Francisco squad. So continues to crush Niners bets. We took that Ricky Pearsall over on the receptions, also worked with the yards, however you wanted to play it. Caleb Williams came through in spades for us because I also had him on 2 bets here. One for the plus money at 30 plus yards, the other minus 115 for him to get his core rushing prop. And then Brian Thomas Jr. sailed over 71.5 receiving yards, getting closer to 140 in this game. I believe he had 136 that he ended with. And Bijan should have taken the rushing yards for whatever dumb reason. I added the receiving against a Giants team that they were clearly going to smack into the ground, and they did. So that was my bad. I hope those of y'all that played Bijan just played the rushes there. Probably could have taken him for 2 touchdowns as well. But speaking of the touchdowns, 3-3. But when you play the plus money bets the way you're supposed to with the touchdowns, don't take minus money. I made the biggest mistake possible last week, taking Brian Robinson Jr. there. That's on me. But we continue to ride the Jackson Smith and Jigba train. He was plus 195 for the tutty, and Jerome Ford got in there, and then they didn't get the extra point. But DeAndre Swift did not get in despite a really good game in that one. And then if you look down from my bets, Joe Burrow carried me once again, got me the 2-1 on 3 touchdown passes, but Juwan Jennings and Rachaad White did not come through. So we'll continue to roll along here. Let's get into week 17. Kicking it off with the Chiefs and the Steelers. Going to be somewhat of a bloodbath, I would imagine, between these 2 monster defenses. Although Chris Jones does look like he's not going to play for Kansas City. So we'll see what that does to the rush defense. But kicking it off with their offense, it's healthy, at least everywhere outside the wide receiver core, and it's humming along now that Isaiah Pacheco is back as well. 12th in passing yards, 9th in pass EPA. Just very efficient. The story on the season with KC is they're not blowing anybody out, but they're winning and hitting. They're getting the yards that they need to in the play during the plays that they need to, right? They're extending drives when they need to, etc. So just 2 losses on the season for them, but they are going to be looking to wrap up the 1 seed as soon as they can. If you look at the rush yards for them, 15th on the season, but 11th in rush EPA, and that adjusted yards before contact for this offensive line is awesome. Been in the top 10 all season, and I expect them to be able to do pretty well against this Pittsburgh defensive line, which has done well in the rush for sure. This has been an incredible rush defense all season. You're a little bit more likely, I would imagine, to get yards off the pass. But at the same time, they've been leading for a lot of the way, and teams know that they can't run on them as well, which is a big reason why the passing yards are so high, but the pass EPA is low. So underlying metrics say this is a better pass defense, and the Chiefs want to run anyway. So I think they're going to continue to run. They're going to try to continue to move that line backwards for the Steelers, and we'll see a lot of touches for the guys out of the backfield. For Pittsburgh's offense, I mean, we know that they've been running the ball as much as they can. This is a team in the top 5 in terms of run play rate. We know that's going to continue to be the case, even against a good defense, a really, really good rush defense specifically for the Chiefs. I still think the Steelers are going to try to own the sort of rush game and the time of possession as much as they can, because they know that if they give the ball to Patrick Mahomes, he may or may not score a touchdown, but he's going to have the ball in his possession for a long time. They're 3rd now in total possession on offense for the Chiefs. So for the Steelers offense to combat that, they're going to need to have success on the ground, or at least going to need to do those run plays to keep the clock running, right? And obviously success will keep the clock running, but either way, they're going to want those drives to be elongated on offense. So I do think we're going to continue to see a very high run play rate for the Steelers. And I don't know that they would have much success passing against this Chiefs defense anyways, to be honest. So that's the story of this game on this side of the ball is going to be, can the Steelers get any running success? They're going to run the ball on 3rd down as well. This is the team running the ball the 4th most on 3rd down for the Steelers. in general, they're running the ball in almost every situation. So I think they'll continue to try to get third and short, and so run on first and second down, or some sort of trickery in short plays, bubble screens, things of that nature. And we're going to see a lot of Najee Harris, and we'll see plenty of Jaylen Warren as well out of the in the pass game especially. Let's get into some player props for this game, and then we'll move on to the Texans and Ravens after I show you what I like here for Chiefs and Steelers. Kicking it off with Kelce, I think this is a really good opportunity for him. I don't know that he's going to have a choice but to be involved in the offense because the Steelers are likely going to continue to shut down things on the outside, where it's not like the Chiefs have the strength of their offense out there anyway. You look at Kelce, started out slowly. We talked about this early in the season. By about like week 8 or 9, we expected him to continue to sort of round into form and then become a lot more involved in the offense. Plus, by that point in the season, he didn't have any choice with all the wide receivers that are out now for the Chiefs. As a result, second among tight ends in targets this season, number 1 in routes run and in air yards. So this is the dude that is sort of wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs. And that's actually a position that the Steelers have struggled against a little bit more than they have wide receiver 2s and guys that are running out of the slot more. We'll see Kelce out of the slot plenty, but we've also seen him coming out of the backfield, and plenty of trickery, obviously, with Andy Reid and company for Kelce. If you look at the last 10 games, since he's really had to turn it on, 6.5 receptions per game, 51 receiving yards per game. So I think we're going to continue to see him targeted 8 to 9 to 10 times. And all these numbers, by the way, I should just close on this, include 2 complete duds versus the Bills and 49ers. The Bills bracketed him, right? And they run a lot of cover 1 just like the Steelers do. So they were able to bracket him with a lot more athletic Matt Milano, right? Guys like that were coming in and really able to play sort of that hybrid safety and linebacker position. They were able to bracket Kelce here with a linebacker and sort of a pseudo safety coming in. But with the cover 1 that the Steelers run, you're going to see Minkah Fitzpatrick being really far downfield. So I don't know that he's going to be, and he would be the best option at an athlete to come up and help double team Travis Kelce. I don't know that he's going to be able to do that if they play their cover 1 with him so high up, right out in the zone. So I think we're going to see Kelce continue to have the 7 to 10 yard routes available to him, and he should be good for about 6 receptions in this game. Other game here is going to be a good one. Again, a playoff rematch between the Ravens and the Texans. So let's kick it with the strong side of the ball for both these teams, the offense for the Ravens and the defense for the Texans. We got the Ravens here 5th in passing yards and 1st in pass EPA. And we love to think of them as this run team that dominates on the ground, and they certainly do. But what we don't realize is that this pass attack has become lethal as we've seen Mark Andrews get a lot more involved in it, giving them another option out there on the seams as he runs those really, really nice corner routes. So with that in mind, they're going to probably have success with Mark Andrews. Again, I think he's probably good for a touchdown if you can get him at 2 to 1. But keeping on with here, we've got the rush yards for the Ravens as well. 2nd there, 3rd in rush EPA. That offensive line is in the top 5 in adjusted yards before contact. So they're going to continue to try to pound the ball as much as possible, and then just sort of go over the top with Lamar in the run game. But I do think we're going to see a lot of rushing for the Ravens in this one. Even though that is the strength of the defense for the Texans, I know they're going to want to control the clock, not even let CJ Stroud get going. Not that he has very many weapons left. So I think that they're going to be looking at trying to control that clock and time of possession, and the rushing game will be very, very successful for them in this one, including with Lamar, which we'll talk about in a minute. On the other side of the ball, obviously, this is a pass funnel defense for the Ravens, meaning what they're going to give up is passing yards. And in part, it's been because teams are trailing against them and try to come back, need to pass, and specifically pass, honestly, a lot more to like tight ends and down the middle of the field. The corners on the outside for the Ravens really get a bad rap when in reality, they're both ranked in the top 50 in terms of their cornerbacks and the opponent quarterback rating that they're going up against. So they're not giving up a lot. They're just a ton of volume of passes that are coming their way. They're still somewhat efficient on those passes. It's just the amount that the teams are unable to run on them forces them to pass. And I do think that'll be the case here for the Texans. Like, I don't know that Joe Mixon's going to see the level of success that he's had. It's not necessarily that the rush yards are so high for this team. And 18th, I wouldn't even call that high, but even at 18th with the 27th rush EPA on offense for the Texans, it does say that they're just pounding the ball. The yards per carry, not very good for Mixon. So I don't know that they're going to have much success, and nobody has, against this Ravens rush defense. I would be looking at the Texans to have to pass a lot more, which is going to be a problem, as we'll talk about here, because of the injuries. Let's get into a player prop here that I have for the Ravens and Lamar. I think the rushing yards are a good over in this game. We've seen him now do this a lot more on the road as well. He's at about 8.5 carries, and I think he's probably going to get 10 to like 10 plus in this game. I think he will be using his legs a good amount against this Texans defense. He's had 61 yards per game rushing on about 10 carries on the road, so that's really key here as they play in Houston. And Houston's defense is going to be running that man coverage, which is why they give up a good amount of rushing yards to the quarterback, because the eyes are on the corner, on the receivers, right? The defenders are all manned up and having to stick to one person, meaning they can't really spy the QB quite as much. It's going to be a problem. Now, I expect them to have a spy available, but one linebacker in there to cover Lamar Jackson probably isn't going to be enough. And interestingly, his indoor numbers are a big reason for this too. And we're going to see him most likely playing indoor there in Houston. Career-wise, he's actually at 57 rushing yards on 10 attempts per game when he plays indoors. A little bit more of a likelihood to see him run when it's less likely he's going to lose his footing on some snow or rain or what have you on the outside or playing outdoors. It's also the pass attempts and the pass yards that drop for him when he goes indoors, in part because they can now use him a little bit more safely as a runner. So in the last 2 seasons, he's at 80 fewer passing yards per game indoors, and like I said, up to about 57 rushing yards total in his career now when he plays inside. So I love that sort of situation for him. I think he's good for 50 plus in this one, and I'm going to lean on the rushing yards for him rather than the pass. This is not a bet. This is a lean for me, but I actually am leaning to the under for CJ Stroud if you combine his pass and his rush and get that up to about 268.5. Tank Dell is now done for the season. John Mechie is questionable, and a dude that could provide something on the outside for them, running down the those fly routes for the speedster. John Mechie would be cool to see him out there. Don't even know if he's going to be out there or if he is 100%. So we're looking at a lot of Dalton Schultz. We're looking at a lot of Joe Mixon out of the backfield. I guess Robert Woods is going to give it a go. I mean, other than that, it's Nico, and that's it. And they're going to do everything possible in Baltimore's defense to make sure that there's like 3 dudes that are on Nico at all times, knowing full well that unless they get deep shots to Nico Collins for long touchdowns, I'm not sure how well they're going to be able to move the ball down the field and matriculate to get touchdowns or even field goals for that matter. But they probably will be getting more field goals than touchdowns. The other thing about this Ravens pass defense, did you know that in the last 5 games, it's given up the 3rd fewest passing yards? Going from giving up the most in the season to 31st was actually a pretty big stride for them because they were really poor. They're far and away giving up the most passing yards per game. So I like the fact that they're trending upwards. I've mentioned that their cornerbacks are probably underrated because of the amount of passing yards they're giving up, when in reality, they're better than that. It's just the amount of volume against them. And the rushing for CJ is not as likely, once again, at home. Little home road split stuff for you. He's only averaging 3.3 carries per game at about 8.6 rushing yards at home. So he seems to be a little bit more comfortable, doesn't have to rush out of the pocket. I don't know that you're going to get very much pressure on him from this Ravens defense that has not prioritized rushing the QB anyway. So that's a big reason why I don't know that he's going to need the rushes. They don't really want him to run. He doesn't really like to run. He's a pocket quarterback. Then when you add that to the passing, I think we get a really good number here. You get value on both. So you put them together to go under. If you're going to fade him, I haven't put this bet in yet, but this is a strong lean that I'm looking to play. Now, interestingly, I do like Dalton Schultz to go over because his numbers are so low and he's got to throw to somebody. This is going to be a guy without Tank Dell that I think you're going to see get more involved, because with Tank Dell out there playing out of the slot mostly, obviously eats into where Dalton Schultz is running his routes. So that's why you've seen in the 6 games that Dalton Schultz has played with the Texans and without Tank Dell, he's at 6.5 targets a game and 4.3 receptions. So he's about 3.5 receptions this one, really bad juice, but he's got a pretty good ADOT, especially for a tight end, like average depth of target. He's running far enough down the field that I think you can go over on the 35.5 receiving yards as opposed to the targets. He's 5th among tight ends in ADOT and 3rd in unrealized air yards. And earlier in the season, there seemed to be a little bit of the disconnect between Dalton Schultz and CJ Stroud. They weren't really connecting quite as much over the first 5 to 6 games, and Dalton's really picked it up since then. So I think this is a really good spot for him without Tank Dell against a defense that is allowing the 7th most receptions and yards per game to the tight end position, which once again, I told you they're much better on the outside as at the cornerback position, but tight ends are able to have some success. So not scared of an under for CJ alongside an over for Dalton Schultz when Dalton's numbers only at 35.5 yards. And I expect him to see about 6 to 8 targets for sure in this one. One bet that is not from any of the games on Wednesday, but is from the Seattle game on Thursday when they take on the Bears. And this man is still getting some value here for Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm going over 70.5 receiving yards. Between Dieter and myself, my the guest that I have on every Friday when we're able to get these player props and anytime touchdowns, we've been hitting it Jackson Smith and Jigba all season, and he's only continued to get better. If you looked at him last week, 12 targets, 8 catches, 95 yards in the tutty. He had 48% of the air yards. So almost half of the amount of yards through the air that Geno Smith was throwing the ball went to him. That was 156 air yards. In the last 4 games now that he's played with DK Metcalf out there, he's out targeting DK 26% to DK's 19%. And even Tyler Lockett, obviously below that. So he is the number 1 receiver, even out of the slot at this point for Geno Smith. He's running the furthest down the field. He's getting thrown to the most and looked at the most. And now you've got a really good matchup too against the Bears in terms of the slot receiver being more successful than on the outside when you've got to go against Jalen Johnson like DK Metcalf will have to. It's a part of it. To be fair to DK, he's always getting the best cornerback on the other team. And when it's someone as good as Jalen Johnson, obviously it's less likely to be successful. So poor DK, whatever. We're going to ride some more Jackson Smith and Jigba overs to victory, baby. Going to be back here with the NBA for Christmas Day as well. So make sure you're subscribed to that page if you are not yet and get in on the NBA action where, once again, also up about 40 units on the season. So feeling good about that. We'll be back with that episode and continuing on as soon as we get back from Christmas break. So happy holidays to everybody. And until I see you next, happy betting.